Happy Saturday, everyone. Okay, so this is a special Saturday edition. I don't think this is going to be a really long video because all we've really got left is these inset letters. Now, what I want to really go over on these inset letters, these are big inset letters. So I want to, number one, I've got a lot of different possibilities of what bits I'm going to use. Oh, by the way, you're going to see these in here. That's just where I was testing the depth of bits. I knew this is all going to be inset when I was doing this with my SC50 and profile, so don't mind that. It's going to be gone in a minute here. Anyway, so I could use a profile bit to go around the inside of there and then leave more meat inside of these letters, or I could use probably could use a 90-degree bit. Honestly, that would cut a wide groove and would leave hardly nothing inside, but I'm going to use the 60-degree bit because I want to leave a little bit of meat inside of some of the places on those letters, and because that's a question that I get a lot. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and carve this T. These are 3-inch and these are 2-inch, by the way. I'm going to go ahead and do this T, and then I'm going to explain what I did on it. But anyway, oops. Hang on. I had to move my hose. All right. Nope. I caught it just in time. Oh, I got to put my cheaters on it. Hang on here. Oh, it's nice to have my wife home. I know you guys appreciate it too. Here we go. All right, here we don't go. I guess I should probably plug it in. It might work a little bit better. Or I could just spin it real fast.
I don't think you could spin it fast enough.
Probably not. Maybe in my younger days. Not now. Here we go. Okay, couple things. As I was cutting that line across here, you saw that looks pretty crappy right now. So one thing that you can do if you're brand new to carving is you can, sorry babe, I'm messing you up there, is pull, if you've got a long straight line like that, just turn it sideways, and then when you're pulling that router to you, you could probably make a little straighter line. So that was the first thing. Now, the next thing is, and this is what I hear all the time, well, what do you do with that leftover stuff in there? So there's many things you can do. I generally take it out like I would background around outset letters. But if you don't like that texture in the background, you could take it out with a flat bottom bit. So here's the way I normally do it. Now, chances are I'm cutting deep enough that I probably won't have any leftover in here, but on the big ones I will. But that's what I do with leftover stuff. So you cut from one side and then the other, and then whatever's left in, you just take it out however you want. Now, you could do it any number. Again, you can use a flat bottom bit. You could you know, if you like a clean look back in there. I like the texture, but it's kind of a personal preference. Sounds like Dad's running the router in the shop. He must be running some pieces or something. All right, so let's do a couple more letters here. These, again, these are 2-inch. These are Clarendon font, by the way, if you needed to know. So you can see there's really nothing left in there. Maybe those aren't high enough that they're gonna show up when I sand it off. So what I'm gonna do, oh, by the way, in case I didn't mention before, I can't remember, this is Select Pine. It's just a regular Select Pine that I get down at Lowe's. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up all this carving. Oh, by the way, so you guys are probably wondering, this has got an apostrophe in it, and I know somebody's probably going to say, well, what is grammatically it's not supposed to have an apostrophe. Sorry, don't care. That's what the customer wanted, that's what they get. So grammatically it might not be correct. In fact, grammatically I'm pretty sure it's not correct, but I asked the customer and they said they wanted the apostrophe, so that's what they get. Anyway, this is how I do the apostrophe. So now, if you are not good at and haven't done quite as many as I have, you know, you might want to actually draw it or make a little apostrophe. But that's how I do a inset apostrophe. I just leave myself a dot there and put a tail on it. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of this up off camera. And then when we come back, we're going to finish this whole sign up. Okay, folks, so we're got all the carving done. Now we're just spraying it. I went back and kind of touched up a few of those little tiny spots, those little letters and stuff. So I think they're ready to go. Again, this is pine, so I want to be really careful that I don't overspray. Pretty critical because I really don't want any bleeding, even though I do have sanding sealer on this board before I ever started. Again, for those of you that might be new that don't know what my process is as far as the sanding sealer goes, I put sanding sealer on my pine boards, just my pine, not my not my cedar, to prevent bleeding into the grain of the board when I do the spraying. Huh?
I was wondering how you're going to do that with that rounded.
It's balance. Must have balance. Anyway, so we'll let this dry. Again, I'm just nice, easy touch with the spray can. And I'm using a primer on this one. Works just as good as the ink. So we'll let that dry. We'll come back and sand it off. Okay, folks, it's all dry, ready to go. Let's sand it off, see what it looks like. Here we go. in case you guys are brand new to watching, I used a 40 grit belt there, either a 40 or a 50, and I use that to take off, you know, almost all of the black. Now I'll go back with my separate sander, and this has got a 120 belt on it, so now I'll do my finish sand on there. Let's blow it off and see what it looks like. By the way, you guys saw that if you go back and watch, you saw right in this area there was like a dent in the board. And that's the reason I really like these little sanders, is because I've got used to using them to the point where I can kind of pinpoint if I need to sand off. And if you guys go back and watch that really close, you'll see I was able to kind of not just hold it flat, but just kind of use the front edge of that belt right there to sand just in that area right there, rather than having to sand everything off, because if I sanded too much in that area, I would have lost some of that detail. Anyway, this is just something I wanted to throw out there. All right, let's blow it off, see what it looks like. I'm pretty happy with that.
Can you hold that back up there?
Oh, yeah.
Please? I want to kind of zoom in on those.
I'm pretty happy with that. Now what I'll do, in fact I'll do it while it's sitting right like that, is I take my, let me put the sander behind it. I want to keep it standing up while I'm doing this. What I like to do, in case there's any real fuzzy spots on there or little what I call feathers, I take my real fine or real soft brush and I blow it, brushing that detail. Now the reason I do that is because anything that I would happen to bust loose with this, as far as little pieces of sawdust, if I'm not blowing on it at the same time, it could go back there and kind of microscopically scratch the black. I did a whole video on exactly why I use a soft brush and I spray at the same time. So that is about it. Oh, one other thing. I don't know if you can see this, but right in this area right here, that D, when I carved that D, I don't think you guys might have seen it on film, I'm not sure. But when I carved that D in there, I messed up and I went the wrong direction and the middle of the D completely chipped out. It was gone. And I knew that that was going to be an issue. So what I did was that is actually a filler that I used, and I filled that and then sanded it off and recarved it, marked it and recarved it, and can't really even tell. So if that happens, and by the way, these are 1/8 inch tall letters, probably the smallest I've ever carved. They're not exactly perfect like they would be if they were CNC carved, but they're as close as I can get. Anyway, so yeah, oh actually I wanted to show that. There's the logo. So, and I think that's about full size actually. But those are some really tiny letters. They make these look giant. And those are, I think, 1/4 inch. And these are 3/16. Huh? Anyway, all right. So, now we're going to come back and we're going to put the stain on it. Now, I want to go over some stuff on that as well. So we'll be right back. All right, so because my customer asked for a little bit darker board, I'm going to use this stain. This is a stain that I use on my pine. I always ask.
You got a glare.
Oh.
No, set it up.
Set it up?
Yeah, just like that.
So I always ask my customer, do you like a lighter color board or a darker color board? If it turns out I'm using pine, and they want dark, then I use this cedar stain. This is what I really like. And now I know a lot of you guys use stain. That's a wipe-on stain. I've never been comfortable with that because, number one, it takes a long time if you're staining something that's got black on it, because I found that the stain, when it touches the black, if you wipe across it, it could streak the black across the board. I've had that happen to me before, so I just don't do it anymore. I spray this stain on and I let it go. But that being the case, there's a couple of issues. Now, I really like this stain. I like this spray nozzle. But what happens is, after you used it the first time, the second, third, fourth time, and this is almost a full can, this nozzle can get kind of jacked up where it kind of spurts. So you have to be really, really careful, and always, 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 if you're doing this, then always test it on a test piece first to see how it's gonna spray. Now, I've already kind of played with this a little bit, and I have tested it already on the other side, but I wanted to do it on camera. And when you're using this stuff, you just want to fog it just like that. That would be absolutely perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. But now, if you look at this nozzle, this is something I just recently discovered. If you look at this nozzle, and in between your sprays, if you don't wipe that off, what could happen, and this is probably either the second or the third time I've used this can. When you're right out of the gate, brand new can, you don't have an issue. But second, third, fourth time, this nozzle, how that stuff builds up, that's nothing. It will build up more than that, and then all of a sudden it's going to start spurting, and you're going to have little droplets spurting on there. So what I found is that, and I don't know if I can make it do that. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Now, of course, it doesn't want to. But see how that's built up a little bit more? I know I'm really a challenge for you on filming.
We didn't prepare for this.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah. That's why you're a professional camera woman. But what I do is I'll just wipe that off. I'll just take a paper towel and I'll wipe it off once that starts building up. So let's go ahead and do the sign. And I already sanded the back off of off camera, so it's done. Let's just go ahead and stain the back. See how it's spurting? There it is, right there. That's exactly what I was talking about. So I'll make one pass, wipe it off. So if you wipe it off in between passes, you should be okay, theoretically. We'll see. Now the real test comes. I'm going to wipe it off, one pass. And this is just an example, guys. I'm still learning this whole process because I discovered this like yesterday. That's the only thing I really don't like about this stain, is the way that it kind of clogs up that nozzle. Now, so that's it. The sign is done. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let it sit for about 2 hours, make sure it's nice and dry to the touch, and then I'm going to put my clear on it, and that's it. I'm going to call it a day. But here's another thing on this I discovered this morning. Well, I knew it, but I also kind of figured out a deal. This particular thing, it pops right out of there.
Wait a minute. You didn't let me zoom in.
Oh, I thought you were already on it. This deal, this little white thing, the actual spray nozzle itself, it pops right out of there. Now that little hole, I don't know, you probably can't see it. I'm moving it. That little hole right there, I have a little tiny, really super tiny drill bit that I clear that out with. Again, if it, and you got it?
Yeah.
I'll even show you the drill bit. And again, guys, this is just something I've just actually learned. I keep this little drill bit right here just for that purpose. For cleaning out nozzles and
Bring it down a little bit. There you go.
for cleaning out nozzles and other things like that. In fact, I even use this to clean out the end of the critter sprayer sometimes when it gets kind of clogged up. And I keep it right in that one spot just for that. Move the can. So that sign is done. I'm going to let it sit and then we're going to put a clear on it. So that is it for this sign. We'll be right back. All right, guys, here it is. Man, I am excited. I am chomping at the bit to dive into this thing. So on Monday's video, I'm gonna be carving this thing. I don't know if we'll get it all carved on Monday's video. Now what I've done, so the last time you saw this layout, what I've done is I've gone and I've taken a Sharpie and I've darkened all the lines. If you go back and watch the video where I did the layout on this, the transfer, this was all kind of, it was really kind of faded. It didn't transfer really well. So I took a Sharpie and I darkened everything in. So everything that you see black here will be carved in. I'll get into it. I'm just excited. I want to just get after this thing. But I'll talk about that on Monday before we start carving this thing. But on Monday we'll definitely be carving, making some blue pine, beetle kill pine sawdust. So and resin. That's the part I'm most nervous about, is where these dark spots are. I'm going through the knots, and most of this is resin. So I don't know, it's the first time I've ever done. And here's the exciting part. I'm going to do an element on this sign that I've never ever done before. You guys have never seen me do this. I don't know that anybody's ever done it, to be honest. I've never seen it done, but I've been thinking about it for a long time. This sign is going to be kind of a experiment for an element of sign making that, again, I've never done before. But anyway, I'm excited about that. Share it with you guys. All right, guys. You guys have a great weekend. Happy Saturday. Hope your weekend goes well. And we will see you on Monday morning. Bye-bye.